We're done.
Guys, what do you think? $150,000 for 15% of your soul. Would you do it? I don't think I could do that. Doesn't seem like a good deal. Anyways, we're talking about Preacher, Season 2, Episode 6. And as always, you can find me on Twitter at RyanEricP. Hit me up with any questions, anything I get wrong, anything at all. Just say hi. Before we get into Episode 6 of Preacher, be sure to subscribe because we're going to be here all season long. And we're also breaking down Twin Peaks, Game of Thrones, and coming soon, Rick and Morty. Episode 6 starts off with the aforementioned soul-selling business. A Japanese technician pays $150,000 for 15% of someone's soul and sells it to a match that suffers from dementia for a cool $2.7 million. Quite a profitable business. These guys will come into play later. Back at Denny's house, Team Preacher is chatting about their next move when the Saint of Killers finally makes his entrance. Thankfully, Tulip's stepdaughter Allie got away in time. As for this guy, not so lucky.
Where's the preacher?
I don't preach him, man! I'm a Jew!
Or this dude. And in the greatest Greek yogurt product placement in TV history, Jesse gets the heads up that the Saint of Killers is at their doorstep. They escape just in time, and then Team Preacher decides to check out the local library to learn up on the Saint and how to defeat him. So they jump into some audiobooks, a Viewmaster, and actual books with the actual comic book panels. The trio learns of the Saint of Killers' origin story and a significant fact. He's the only living person without a soul. Yeah, we don't get all the same details that we've read in the comic books, like the Angel of Death, Hell freezing over, killing the devil, or Boot Hill, but the sequence was cleverly meta and clearly tongue-in-cheek, ending with a fun punchline.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of American Psychopaths. Join us next time for Chapter 58, Dick Cheney.
That was fun and all, but Team Preacher completely forgot about Denis, who comes home to find the Saint of Killers waiting for him. Guys, you're staying at his house, you can't even warn the guy? Shortly afterwards, Jesse finally comes face to face with the man hunting him down. Unsurprisingly, the Saint wants to kill Jesse, but Jesse explains that God cannot send him to heaven.
God ain't giving you shit. He's gone.
So they decide to make a deal. Jesse tells the Saint that he can get him into heaven and reunite him with his family. The Saint actually agrees on the deal, but holds Jesse's friends captive as insurance. With just 1 hour to prove himself, Jesse literally goes soul-searching. Jesse ends up at a house of voodoo to buy a soul, but he quickly learns that Soul Happy Go-Go has cornered the market. Oh, and that armored truck may look extremely familiar because it drove past the Saint of Killers as he slowly made his way into New Orleans. Also, the painting in the House of Voodoo reminds me of Xavier from the comic books. As for another comic book reference,
Angel Vu, hanging on by a thread.
I'm extremely excited to see how the Leangels are adapted for the TV show, but I'm not sure we'll get the whole story this season. Speaking of family, back at Denis' house, Cassidy reveals to Tulip who Denis really is.
He's my son.
Surprise! I was genuinely shocked to learn that Cassidy is Denis' dad, although Denis did allude to this relationship in French earlier in the episode. When Cassidy was trying to tie his shoes, he said, quote, "I'm not a child, I don't need you to do my laces," end quote. Remember, in the comic books, Cassidy did say that he had a few children that he didn't really keep track of, so this makes sense. It really makes you think differently about Cassidy and the curse of being a vampire, having to watch loved ones grow old and weak while you just stay the same. I'm really looking forward to how much they develop this backstory. Back to Jesse, after a failed attempt at a hardware store bomb thanks to Tulip and a run-in with the police, Jesse gets into the Soul Happy Go-Go armored truck and looks for a soul to match with the Saint of Killers. But it turns out this soul is extremely rare, and the only match is Jesse's own soul. So he's forced to give up 1% of his own soul. He returns home just in time to stop the Saint of Killers from killing Tulip, but poor Cassidy has lost all of his fingers. Don't worry, Cassidy, they'll grow back. So the Saint takes 1% of Jesse's soul, which he believes will get him into heaven and reunite him with his family. But it was just a setup. Now the only living man without a soul has one, and the word can be used against him. Jesse disarms him, and instead of sending him to hell, decides to lock the Saint up in an armored truck and leave him underwater in the swamp. It's possible Jesse learned from his mistake of sending Eugene to hell and decided not to do the same here. Of course, it's poetic that Jesse punishes the Saint just as he was as a child underwater. So that's where episode 6 ends, but I do have a few questions moving forward. First, I really like the idea that Cassidy is Denny's father, but are we so sure that Cassidy is telling the truth, or is he just trying to get some sympathy from Tulip? Remember, his intentions have not always been the best. Also, Jesse might want to find a better hiding place for the Saint's guns. At least get them out of Denny's house, right? I guarantee we're gonna see the Saint again, and he's going to want those guns back. How pissed are the soul-happy go-go folks gonna be? Their armored truck with millions and millions of dollars of souls is submerged in the Angelville swamps with a sadistic killer cowboy. Jesse might have just made a whole lot more enemies. It's likely that they'll track down their truck, and that's how the Saint will get free. Finally, both Tulip and Jesse may have been changed forever after this episode. When Tulip was touched by the Saint, she was in the literal hands of death. For someone as badass and fearless in the past, she's definitely rattled to say the least. And Jesse giving up a part of his soul to save his friends was extremely significant. This was Jesse at his most selfless and giving up the most important part of himself. But I'm guessing there's gonna be consequences in how Jesse acts down the road. Both physically and spiritually, you can definitely see that Jesse has changed at the end of this episode.
Don't talk to a man about the end of the world. Wanna come?
Samson unit of the Grail handles the false prophets.
Spectacular.
We should just take a break. Have some fun.
Yeah?
It's about to get real!
Can't you feel it, Jesse? That something's not right feeling.